Morning, everyone. I came out from Washington this morning to see what an infrastructure bill looks like. In all seriousness, I'm honored to be asked to be a minor part of this program, and I speak more as a resident of the state and certainly of the town of Springfield in expressing gratitude to the governor, lieutenant governor, and all of the legislators who on a bipartisan basis have put together a capital program long overdue. If you take a look at what we live on in this state, we are living on the decisions and courage and determination of previous generations that stepped up and met their obligation to their kids and built the things that we all take for granted. I understand that we're just 2 weeks away from the 10th anniversary of the last capital bill in the state of Illinois. 10 years. A great state needs more than that. We need to have the determination of the leaders of this state to lead. We need to have people who will reach out and create coalitions that really work to put bills and pass them as they did with this capital bill. And we also need to make sure that we bring the right people to the table. And we did today. It's demonstrated by those who've gathered here in Springfield. We have so many people who are ordinary citizens, tax-paying citizens, I might add. We have folks representing organized labor. Would the folks with organized labor be nice enough to raise their hands so we can see they're here? Welcome. We're glad you're here. We have people from the construction and business community, and we have a lot of leaders in this community who realize that the investment can make a difference. In my hometown of Springfield, Illinois, the investment that will be made in railroad relocation is going to change Springfield positively forever. We are going to see the development of our hospital complexes as well as opportunities for new jobs that never would have taken place. When you take a look at each and every generation of political leaders and you wonder what can you do to make a difference, there are two things we know work for sure: infrastructure and education. Those two things make a difference in every generation. So I guess you're wondering, when's the Fed government going to come around with their own infrastructure bill? And I honestly don't know the answer to that. It was promised in the last campaign. There's been an effort on a bipartisan basis to get it moving. And man, would it be terrific to take this capital bill and make it the 20% down payment on a major federal bill. You can just see what that would turn into across our state. It's my honor to not just be here today and say thank you to the governor, lieutenant governor, and members of the legislature, but also to introduce a person who's become a great friend and a person I look up to in so many respects. He's my state senator. He's been an active player in the decision process in the state capitol, along with his colleagues who are here today. And he's shown the kind of leadership and commitment to this local community that everyone recognizes and makes a difference. Please welcome State Senator Andy Manar.
Good morning to everyone. Senator Durbin, thank you for the kind introduction and thank you for your leadership. On behalf of grateful constituent, not just for what you do for Springfield, but for all of the state. Thank you for being here. As the senator said, my name is Andy Manar. I proudly represent, along with many of my colleagues that are standing with me today, the capital city and the state senate. And this spring, I had the privilege of co-chairing hearings around our great state with my colleague from Cicero, Senator Marty Sandoval. Every community that we heard from, both urban and rural, conservative and liberal, every single community told us their story of crumbling infrastructure and told us in very clear terms that it was time for us to act. Years of partisan inaction had taken its toll on state and local infrastructure. Our bridges are crumbling, our roads are less safe than they have ever been, and we also heard from local officials that the situation had become so challenging to their communities that they believed that it may never be fixed. But my friends, today is a different day in the state of Illinois. Governor and Lieutenant Governor, we are very pleased, and I am very pleased that you're in the 48th District to sign this historic piece of legislation. Completing rail consolidation in Springfield is just one important project in the bill that Governor Pritzker is about to sign. And this project is a clear example of why we needed a state capital bill. The $122 million state investment provided for in this important legislation will employ hundreds of skilled workers It will unleash hundreds of millions of dollars of private construction in downtown Springfield, and it is a shining example of what can happen when city, county, state, and federal officials from both parties work together for a common goal. It's everything that proves that investing in public infrastructure makes complete sense. But rail consolidation in Springfield accomplishes something else that's more meaningful than all of those things combined. It goes beyond just the steel tracks and concrete and what we see with our eyes as evidence of progress. And what I'm speaking of is a little harder to measure, but we know it to be true because we feel it in our hearts. In this place where our greatest president walked, in the place where a century ago a race riot established generations of divisions in this city and set into motion the founding of the NAACP, divisions that are still very real today, we are healing that divide with this bill. This legislation recognizes that Springfield is one city, not two, and it recognizes that we are one state, and we are better off when we work together. Without question, this legislation will set into motion a massive undertaking across Illinois. We will fix our broken bridges. We will repave roads, not just to drive on, but roads that will drive economic expansion. We will build schools to relieve the stress on students in overcrowded classrooms, bring broadband to places that have been forgotten, replace rail cars used by Metra today from the 1950s. It will invest in quality of life in places where poverty's roots are strong. We'll build parks for children, healthcare clinics in the smallest of towns, and construct a network of job training and innovation hubs that will prepare our workforce to be the most productive workforce in the world. And finally, let me be clear. None of these things I just mentioned would be happening if we did not have the leadership from Governor J.B. Pritzker and his administration. Now, it would be hard for me to describe the level of negotiations and discussions and compromise that was required to pass these bills. Many of my friends and colleagues that are standing before you today would probably tell you that I was a little bit of a cynic on the gaming bill. But the sponsors brought it home, and we got it done. In a time when governing by division had become the norm in the state of Illinois, our Governor Pritzker, brought business and labor together, Republicans and Democrats together, the House and the Senate together. Upstaters and downstaters came together. It's some of the best legislative work I have ever seen, and it's a direct result of the hands-on, can-do leadership of our governor. This is what progress looks like. Governor, thank you for your leadership, and thank you for setting an ambitious agenda for all of us in the state of Illinois. Governor Pritzker.
Well, thank you so much to Senator Manar and to everyone that's here today. Senator Manar, as you know, has exhibited an amazing, a tireless effort on behalf of his constituents, but also on behalf of the entire state of Illinois. He has been dedicated to this massive effort to rebuild Illinois. Andy, you've been a true partner this entire legislative session. The Capitol bill is just one important contribution of the many that you've made to improve our state. Senator Manar wasn't alone in his support of this bill. In a show of just how good this bill is for this city, the entire Springfield delegation to the General Assembly voted unanimously to begin fixing our roads and bridges, an impressive show of bipartisan unity. In fact, the four bills that make up this historic capital investment took thousands of hours of work by dozens of lawmakers and stakeholders, and in some cases spanned decades. So I want to make sure that I thank all of those who made it possible to rebuild Illinois in the most comprehensive infrastructure construction effort in this state's history. So forgive me, but we have a few thank yous ahead. We would not be here without the tremendous leadership of the 4 legislative leaders here. President Cullerton, Speaker Madigan, Leader Brady, and Leader Durkin. Well, we spent a lot of time together hammering out these bills and reaching agreement, and frankly, I admire the strengths that each of them brought to the table. Senator Durbin, with this bill, the state is stepping up to help secure a project that you long ago championed and established as a major priority. Your clear-eyed view and your sense of purpose in completing this rail consolidation project will mark a new day for this community and frankly for so many in the surrounding communities. I want to thank all the co-sponsors who shepherded this legislation through the General Assembly. Not an easy task. Along with all the hardworking members of our bipartisan working group, including President Cullerton, Senators Aquino, DeWitt, Hastings, Hutchinson, Link, Manar, McConkey, Munoz, Sandoval, Severson is here, Villavalum, along with Leader Harris and Hoffman, Leaders Harris and Hoffman, and Representatives Arroyo, Butler, McDermott, and Rita. A lot of work was put in by this working group, and I truly, truly am grateful. I'd also like to thank, there really aren't enough thanks, for my partner in this effort, in the effort to rebuild Illinois, to really help everybody all across the state, and that's the Lieutenant Governor, Juliana Stratton, whose dedication helped shape this effort and many of our other priorities. I want to thank former Mayor of Chicago, Rahm Emanuel, whose relentless push to enact a capital bill started soon after I won the governorship, and who had the courage to push to make sure that it would be fully paid for. I want to thank business and labor leaders alike. It's not every day that a governor gets to thank business and labor in the same moment, but you came together around these measures because you understood that investing in our roads and our bridges, our universities, and a modern crime lab, and so much more is good for public safety. It's good for business. It's good for jobs. Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk about what this infrastructure bill is going to do for people all across Illinois over the next 6 years. It's all in the name. Rebuild Illinois. Illinois is a global hub of commerce and a transportation center for this nation. We're an essential part of the supply chain for companies across America. We're the 5th largest economy in the United States. But the foundation of that economy, the very infrastructure that moves goods and people, has been left to crumble for decades. Over the years, we've amassed a $30 billion backlog in maintenance needs for our roads and our transit systems. We've racked up a $24 billion backlog at state facilities like the crime lab and educational institutions like our universities. Our infrastructure funding levels have run so low that we're in danger of losing federal funds because leaders of the past didn't make the required commitment to meeting people's basic transportation needs. As a result of the neglect, the people of Illinois have been paying an enormous price. The delays on the way to work cost you money. The congestion that makes it harder for you to pick up your kids on time at school costs you valuable family time. And on average, families are paying more than $500 per year per vehicle just in car repairs, not to mention hundreds of dollars a year in depreciation from the wear and tear when our roads are pocked with potholes and hazards. Nearly half of our state's high school graduates leave Illinois for colleges in other states, in part because our universities, buildings, and facilities are crumbling. When big swaths of our state have no high-speed internet, we miss the opportunity for new businesses and jobs in areas of the state that badly need it. The problems we face are the result of years of disinvestment and passing the buck, but not this year. This year, Democrats and Republicans, many of them standing behind me today, came together to say enough is enough. Together, we passed the largest, most robust capital plan in state history, and we did it in the very best traditions of our democracy, a bipartisan commitment to better the lives of all of our people. We're also providing local government the funds to decide which roads need the most work in local areas. This capital bill will relieve some of the pressure, therefore, on property taxes. We're connecting families and businesses to the limitless possibilities of the internet. We're connecting entire regions to economic development that has passed them by for far too long. We're investing $45 billion over 6 years to repair what's broken and to build what's needed, all while supporting hundreds of thousands of jobs throughout our state. We're reshaping our state's future. We're rebuilding Illinois. The vast majority of the Rebuild Illinois budget, $33 billion, is dedicated to the day-to-day needs of our families, transportation to work and to visit family members and access services and to go to school and so much more. This plan includes over $1 billion to expand and improve rail systems. We're the only state where all 7 of the nation's leading and largest railroads operate. That reduces the number of automobiles and freight trucks on the road and decreases pollution. And it means that our goods can get to market and our warehouses can operate at full capacity. That means jobs. Here in Springfield, new funding will complete the 10th Street Corridor high-speed rail project, strengthening the connection between Chicago, Springfield, and St. Louis, and continuing the healing process for the city's long-divided east and west sides. We'll be working to end the racial injustice that these very railroad tracks have historically represented. This project's completion will set in motion the expansion of the medical district campus, which can't be fully executed until the rail lines sit farther from the hospital. The $250 million that Andy talked about, a private investment in the campus, will add thousands of jobs on top of the direct employment that Rebuild Illinois will bring. And once rail traffic is shifted, the 3rd Street rail that currently cuts through the heart of downtown will become a pathway for bikers and runners, bringing the city together once more. What's happening here is a microcosm of what we're doing across the state. We're fixing decades-old problems, creating good jobs, improving communities for the next generation, and doing it together across party lines. Beyond our trains, this plan includes $25 billion to maintain, enhance, and upgrade the roads and bridges that the people of Illinois use every day. These investments mean safer transport for millions of people and thousands of families. It means fewer blown-out tires, fewer car axles thrown out of balance, fewer fender benders, and fewer life-threatening car accidents. Taken together, our goal is to make some of the best roads in the country right here in Illinois, and some of the best that you've driven on in decades. Here in Springfield, we're constructing the Interstate 55, Interstate 72 interchange to reduce congestion and increase safety. We're adding additional lanes and bridge replacements to Illinois 97-125, including a pedestrian overpass from the Illinois 97-125 junction to Illinois 4. We're replacing 2 Springfield area bridges over the Illinois River, the functionally obsolete Illinois 100-106 bridge in Florence and the weight-restricted US 67 Illinois 100 bridge in Beardstown. The Rebuild Illinois plan transforms our state's approach to transportation infrastructure, finally treating our roads and our bridges and our railways like 21st century investments and not relics of the past. But this plan goes further, and what we're doing is what it takes to build a great future for our state. We provide new levels of funding for our colleges and universities and historic investments in early childhood education facilities. We're tackling years of neglected maintenance of state facilities, making sure we have veterans' homes that honor the service of our men and women in uniform, and a modern crime lab that will help eliminate the DNA backlog that prevents so many victims from getting justice. We support the environmental health of our communities with grants and assistance for renewable energy projects, sewage system development, and flood mitigation. We're expanding high-speed broadband internet throughout Illinois. Whether you're a student or a small business person or a farmer, broadband matters. In fact, it's necessary. We're responsibly expanding gaming at the request of cities that want to make sure that they have the resources to pay for police and firefighter pensions and to fund vital services. We'll be talking quite a lot more about our gaming program in the next few days as we travel to communities that will be creating jobs like Rockford and Walker's Bluff. Rebuild Illinois is creating and supporting hundreds of thousands of new jobs in our state, including right here in the Springfield region. This isn't just an infrastructure plan. This is a job creation plan, the likes of which our state has never seen. So folks, it's a new day in Illinois, and I'm very proud to be standing with so many who have worked so hard to usher in a new era of positive change for our state. And now I'd like to introduce somebody who played a key role specifically in the vertical portion of this Capitol bill, but who's been an ally all along in the creation and execution of this infrastructure bill, and that's Senator Terry Link.
I thank the governor for taking most of my speech, but that's okay. I want to say, Governor, it's appropriate that we're doing it here because I think we started the gaming bill when Lincoln was still in office, but I'm not quite sure. And another note I want to make before I give my remarks. Instead of the problem I had, you heard my speech when we passed the bill. I brought my wife with me this time so I didn't have to make that speech again.
Happy anniversary.
I want to, it's appropriate to be out here where it's a sunny, bright day. Because on January of this year, we elected a governor that made possible to make Illinois a brighter state. And I want to thank the governor for what we went through in this General Assembly this session. I've been down here 23 years, and this is the most successful legislative session with top-rated bills that I've ever seen in my career. And I think it goes even back further than that. And I knew the governor was serious about getting all this done. He'll remember this. At 10 o'clock at night, we got a hold of the governor and said we need to meet. He said, I'm in my office. And we met at 10 o'clock at night to go over problems of what we were looking at to get this done. That's the dedication he showed throughout this whole process. This was a team effort. This was something where we brought everybody together. And the final, and I'll use this pun, link to the whole thing was the governor. He brought it together at the end when we had these problems of this group was going here. Like I've always said, doing the gaming bill, doing a lot of these infrastructure bills and stuff like that, it's like herding cats. You got everybody with different philosophies, different beliefs, and trying to get together at one time to vote on something. When we did the gaming bill / all the vertical infrastructure payment, it passed with 48 votes in the Senate. That is remarkable in itself, right there to show the bipartisan, and as Andy eloquently said, upstate, downstate, central, made no difference where you were. We were having votes for all those districts because people were brave enough to stand up and be counted. And I want to say, I'm one of these individuals, and I see my friends in labor all over. I don't mind being slowed down in traffic because of construction, because that means you're working, and that's what this is all about. But I'm excited to see these vertical types of things getting done. We have heard from a lot of schools. We've heard from a lot of buildings in our areas. We've heard of a lot of things that have been dormant, especially for the last 4 years, but it's been the last 10 years that we haven't had this done. I am glad that we had a governor, and I'm going to steal Mike Kerrigan's line. When we were having a press conference, the press turned to us and says, you don't have much time. how are you going to get this done? And Representative Rita and I both said, don't worry about it, we'll get it done. Well, it took us an extra 2 days, but it got done. The point is, we did it. I congratulate all my colleagues that had the courage to stand up, but I'm going to stand up here one more time and thank the governor for showing the leadership that we sorely needed in the state of Illinois. I thank you. Now I will introduce my partner in this whole thing, and I have to say he was a great partner to bring this over the finish line. We've had more meetings. His office is in the Stratton building. My office is obviously in the Capitol. He didn't even know where his office was in the Stratton building because he spent so much time in my office this last session. But with all the other things going on, we were able to do this. Representative Rita was a godsend to be a partner with. He did it. He moved it out of the House. We moved it out of the Senate. And today we're going to sign it. My friend, my colleague, Representative Bob Rita.
Thank you, Senator Link. You know, you're hearing all this great stuff we're going to do today when the governor signs it. So let's start by thanking your leadership, Governor, your staff that worked with us tirelessly to help bring this over to the finish line, and my colleague, Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton. Governor Pritzker and your staffs were great to work with to help put this together. You know, Senator Link said early on, I don't know if it was January or February, he said, I'm not going to be introducing a gaming bill this year. You're going to start it in the House because we've been, so many times we pass a bill over and we can't get past the finish line. So what we did this year, which made the change in this, is we started this in the House and we were able to put it over the finish line with 87 votes in the House. It took a lot of people, a lot of advocates to put this together. I'm just going to name a few of them. Leader Senator Tony Munoz, along with Senator Severson on the Republican side. This was a bipartisan effort. On the House side, it started out with Representative Mike Zaleski, who worked really hard on this. But the staff is really the one that we need to give a good thank you to. Eric Lauder, Joe Miller, and Ashley Jenkins. That last 48 hours, I don't know if they all slept with all the different versions we had. But today, Governor, I want to thank you for signing this. There's two words that come to my mind is economic opportunities, not just for the state, but for all these regions, in creating jobs and sustaining jobs. It's about jobs for the state of Illinois. Now I'd like to bring up the Secretary of IDOT, Omar Osman.
Good morning. So it is my honor and pleasure to be here today. I'm acting Illinois Transportation Secretary Omar Osman. Because of Governor Pritzker's leadership and the General Assembly's support of transportation in our state, I could assure you the Illinois Department of Transportation is back in the business of building a premier transportation network that creates jobs and improves yours and my quality of life. Our roads, bridges, transit providers, ports, rail system, and ability to grow bicycle and pedestrian accommodation have been neglected for far too long. Our communities have suffered as a result. For far too long, we have lacked the ability to invest in infrastructure and projects like the one we are celebrating here today. The Springfield Rail Improvement Project will reduce congestion in the Springfield streets, eliminate train horn noise, and in the city, reduce train and car collision, and significantly improve the Amtrak on-time performance. The governor's capital program, as my staff know by now, is extremely comprehensive and detailed. At IDOT, we have been working around the clock to capture its impact in our planning and programming efforts over the coming months and years. We will, in the coming weeks, be releasing our multi-year program which shows the full scope of Rebuild Illinois. Today is just a test of things to come. I'm truly excited that this is not only the largest capital program in the state history, but the first one that is truly multimodal. Every aspect and mode of transportation in every part of Illinois will be touched by it. As Secretary of Transportation and during my entire 30-year career at IDOT, I have pushed for diversity in our department and on our projects. I am thrilled, absolutely thrilled, that we have a champion in Governor Pritzker. One of my priorities with this capital program will be to redouble our effort to make us more inclusive. Through the DBE program and other initiatives to best reflect the communities we serve. That means strengthening programs that provide opportunities to get young people started on a career in transportation and to make small businesses eligible to participate in our projects. That's how you create jobs, grow businesses, and it does ultimately make our project selection process more competitive. Again, thank you, Governor Pritzker, for your commitment to transportation. And I want to assure you of a couple of things. You need to get used to IDOT. You need to get used to seeing us around here these next few years. And please pardon our dust these next few years while we rebuild Illinois. Thank you. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the AFL-CIO President, Mr. Mike Carrigan.
Thank you, Secretary, and thank you for the invitation to be here and to speak. And I bring you two pieces of good news. One, it's not raining, and two, I intend to be brief. But like all the other speakers, Governor Juliana Stratton, you and your administration worked tirelessly to effect an epic and historic session. Thanks of gratitude to all the legislators, both senators and House members, and on behalf of the 855,000 members of organized labor in Illinois. And when you do the math and equate that to households, you're into the mid 2 millions. Terry Link was talking about his seniority of 23 years. I can't beat that. I can bring you 19 years worth of legislative experience, and I can tell you I have never seen anything like this that's happened in the last 4.5 months. When I was with the governor up and down this state during the campaign, it was remarkable that no matter what community he was in, he had the same speech, he had the same message, and he laid out his priorities. In mid-January, he raised his right hand, he was sworn in, and then we went to work. And what happened was 4.5 months. It was epic, it was historic, and this capital bill is a great indication of what was done. But we had a great budget that provides essential services. We have minimum wage, we have recreational marijuana, we have fair tax, and the list goes on and on. But when I was visiting with President of the IMA, Mark Dinsler, prior to the start of this press conference, we're both in different vehicles, but we're going into communities and talking about the capital bill, pent up trips, promised I'll come when session is over. And people in my tenure, when you go into communities, you meet, of course, with labor, but often they bring in their business arm. You're talking about what's going on in their community. They talk about their economic development needs, and that always high up on their list is an infrastructure project. And with that project, it allows them to retain jobs, attract jobs, and take the next step for their community. And this capital bill project list is indicative of all those pent-up needs, and gaming is another fine example. These communities wanted these projects. These communities saw an epic session. They're going to take these projects. It's going to better their communities. It's going to create jobs, up to like 500,000 jobs in the capital bill. Those jobs turn into paychecks, and it's a good time. It's good for the communities. It's good for the state. It puts people to work, and we are sincerely thankful and a lot of gratitude for what happened in this epic and historic session. Thank you very much. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a very hard-working man in the business community, the president of the Illinois Manufacturers Association, Mark Densler.
Good morning. I'm Mark Densler, President and CEO of the Illinois Manufacturers Association. Today is a great day for families and businesses in Illinois because we are making a game-changing investment in our state's infrastructure. The capital infrastructure is truly building a bridge to the future. Manufacturers need a modern infrastructure to move people and product around the world. The members that I represent, manufacturing is the largest economic engine in Illinois, employing 592,000 men and women on factory floors today that produce more than $300 billion in economic output. We need good rails and bridges, roads and bridges, rail and air, waterways and information technology to be competitive, and make no doubt, there is no doubt that Rebuild Illinois improves our state's competitiveness. More importantly, it also invests in human capital by funding education, higher education, community college, and important career and technical education programs so that Illinoisans can be successful in the new workplace. So Governor, thank you very much for your leadership. Lieutenant Governor Stratton, all of the legislators behind me made it possible today. So it's an honor to be here. I appreciate it, and my pleasure to introduce Sangamon County Board Chair Andy Manar.
Well, you may get the theme now. This is about thank you. So it's my job, and the mayor joins me. He is at the National Conference of Mayors today in saying thank you on behalf of the community. Thank you, Senator Durbin. When this community wasn't sure we had a friend on this 10th Street, 3rd Street rail project, Senator Durbin said, he didn't make a promise, but he said, let me work on that. Here we are. Thank you to our state representative delegation who worked together in a way I think has been unseen since Lincoln led the delegation in moving the state capital to Springfield. Fantastic bipartisan leadership. Thank you very much. And thank you to Governor Pritzker and his wife MK, who this community has really taken to heart. They've become wonderful members of this community. We deeply appreciate your participation in this community in so many ways. Thank you very much, Governor. Thank you. And it's now my pleasure to introduce Lieutenant Governor Juliana Stratton.
Thank you so much, Andy. And good morning, everyone. First, let me just say, Governor Pritzker, I am so proud to serve alongside you. Through your leadership and bipartisan support, today we deliver on a promise that will improve the lives of people all across our state and the lives of future generations of Illinoisans. Rebuild Illinois is the first capital bill that the legislature has passed since 2009. Through this bill, Illinois will get to work on making our state the infrastructure and trade hub that it has the potential to be. We will create good jobs that will help families across our state. We will connect communities with one another, and we will make improvements that will create opportunities for the next generation. From fixing roads and bridges in rural Illinois, improving our higher education and early childhood education facilities, investing in renewable energy projects, and ensuring that everyone has access to high-speed internet and so much more, this much is clear. Rebuild Illinois is not a spending plan. It is an investment in Illinois and its people. And I'd also like to thank all of those who are standing behind us today, to Senator Durbin, to all of the bill sponsors and all of the legislators that are represented here today, to the men and women of labor, organized labor, and all of you. And I'd also like to make a special mention as well of Representative Katie Stewart, who represented the Women's Caucus at the negotiation table. Thank you as well for your leadership. And now, for the moment we've all been waiting for, it's my honor to welcome Governor Pritzker to sign this historic piece of legislation into law.
Yes, sir. On the, at least on that bill, I'll shake, yeah. I'll step out on the others. It's all one. Yes, I did.
I'm going to step back to the podium here and take any questions from members of the
Governor, looking forward to the 6-year plan, what kind of changes do you see possible in the future to this? In particular, I'm looking for any changes to shore up costs, get bigger bang for the buck, design bill or procurement reform or however. But then also some Republicans have concerns that Democrats got more for their districts than Republicans got. Can you address those two issues moving forward in this 6-year plan?
Sure. Well, there are a variety of ways in which we're helping to stretch the dollars to make sure that they have an even greater impact across the state. As you know, just the basic investment in infrastructure helps us bring jobs and businesses to Illinois and helps existing businesses expand. I visited a plant recently where because of the expansion that they're experiencing, they needed a new street light. They needed a new stoplight. They needed an expansion of the roadway in order to go and make the $500 million investment that they intended to make that expansion work. So those are ways in which those dollars are multiplied. I would also say there are opportunities for us to do some public-private partnerships that will allow us to bring in outside dollars to expand, again, our investments in some infrastructure around the state. I'd point to broadband because I think people don't really pay a lot of attention to the broadband investment that we're making, but the idea that we're making broadband available in areas where it hasn't been before means that small businesses, medium-sized businesses, companies outside of Illinois that are thinking about where they're going to put their new headquarters or their new plant can consider an area now that they might not have been able to before as a result of the investment in broadband. I'm sorry, the other question? Oh. You know what? So the question is about how we're distributing the money around the state. The fact is that a majority of the money, of course, from the infrastructure bill goes to downstate Illinois. As you know, the many roads, the miles of roads all across the state, the bridges, the significant investment necessary is in mostly downstate Illinois. And although there are Democrats in districts across in this area and across downstate Illinois, most of that is represented by Republican representatives and senators. And I'm very much in favor of fairness here. I want to make sure that we're making the investments that are necessary. Universities are around the state are mostly, almost entirely, in districts represented by Republicans. And that's where a number of hundreds of millions of dollars, in fact billions, when you add it all up, are going to. So the money is getting distributed, I think, very fairly across the state.
Governor, let's talk a little bit about technology. Governor Rauner was noting how antiquated the state's computer system. Does the capital money go to replace them and update the computers? And on broadband, which I know Secretary Sullivan is very keen on, are we looking at the new technology? Are we going to be looking at the G5 technology? Or are we building the current technology that we might say 10 years from now we should have been looking more forward?
So let me address the broadband question first. There are different technologies that will be useful in different areas of the state, truthfully. It depends upon how much territory you're trying to cover. Fixed broadband wireless, for example, is one way in which you can get broadband from one place to another in areas where there's no other infrastructure, where a pole with a wireless beacon that's aiming at another pole with a receptor, etc., and then lines that run from those receptors to the local communities. So that's one example. Satellite internet is another. There's a lot of development of new satellite internet technology that's coming online. So we want to look at how we can use that and not have to build on the ground infrastructure, and other than, again, a receptor. So that's at least one answer to your question about how we're going to get broadband and what is it going to look like. Could there be 5G? Yeah, I think there are concerns, as you know, about the technology, about who's developed the technology, and whether there are security issues in that technology. So I'm leaving that to the federal government to work out before we make any significant commitments to 5G. The other half of your question was?
Are we updating the state's computers?
Oh, yeah. So I'm very proud of the fact that we have a terrific leader of the Department of Innovation Technology, DO-IT. His name's Ron Guerrier, the director. He's the CIO of the state. This is a guy who has had 3 major private sector positions before this as CIO. He worked for Toyota Financial Services as CIO. He worked for Farmers Insurance as CIO. And then he most recently worked for Express Scripts as CIO. He was willing, and you can imagine what he's giving up to come work for the state of Illinois. He came on board understanding that we have significant upgrades to make. So we're making investments in our budget in DO-IT and in the technology that goes into the departments, as well as the individual department budgets. In the capital bill, there are pieces of it that are focused on technology, but not in the way I think that you're describing, where a new computer on somebody's desk would come from the capital bill. That usually comes from the regular budgets of the agencies, and we've tried to include that across the agency budgets. We'll be making those improvements over the coming years too.
Governor, that gas tax is going to wipe out the savings. Is that something that pretty confident now about 2025 as far as finishing rail relocation, or could we go even faster because this is maybe a quicker infusion than we might see with the federal plan?
I'm not sure if the expert that can answer that question is here with us, but the secretary might be able to, whether we're going to be able to move the rail fast enough to meet a 2025 deadline of the end of this capital bill. The investment will be made. I just don't know what the end date is.
I think it's still 2025. That's what my staff is assuring me of. But what makes it really possible, once again, is if we didn't get that $122 million investment through the capital bill, I don't think one we would do it at all. But according to the phase 1, phase 2 study, and dealing, I believe Hansen Engineering out of Springfield is the overall manager of the corridor. Talking to them, talking to my staff, they are assuring me still 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.
Any education? Yeah, under the prism of working class Illinoisans get a break, why is the gas tax increase a good idea? I can hear the news releases now. On the backs of the working class, or aggressive tax.
First of all, thank you for bringing up the fair tax. It's an important issue for the state, making sure that we give working families a break, and that's been my aim throughout. I said when I was running that I wanted to put Springfield back on the side of working families, and that's what we're doing. With regard to our infrastructure bill here, remember that the investment that's being made by people across the state in this infrastructure bill yields enormous returns nearly immediately. So let's talk about the depreciation and the effect on people's cars every day driving over potholes and the enormous safety hazards that exist on bridges. That's costing people about $500 a year today as a result of that failure of infrastructure. In addition to that, the lost time and congestion of traffic when you're driving because of the infrastructure failures, the lost time with your family, all of the opportunity cost has been added up. When you add that to the actual cost per vehicle of $500 per vehicle, that adds up to between $1,200 and $2,600 per vehicle per family per year. That's a lot of money, and so the amount that people will pay for gas tax is a great investment actually for people all across the state. And the last thing I'd tell you is the gas tax increase. I just want to remind you of something. In 1990 was the last time there was a gas tax increase in this state. It was not indexed to inflation. If it had been indexed to inflation, the gas tax today would be exactly what we put it at. Now remember, all those years have been lost of infrastructure investment as a result of the failure to index the gas tax. So the savings here to people is significant, to businesses is significant. Even the trucking industry has been very much in favor of this capital bill because they know that although they're going to spend some money on gasoline, they're going to save a lot of money in wear and tear and depreciation, and so too will families across Illinois.
Governor, I have an infrastructure question for Senator Lane Severson and Rita. Just one quick question.
Link, Rita, and Severson, the trifecta? Wow. I'll step back. You guys come over here.
I have a follow-up for the governor after this.
Uh-oh. We'll do a trio.
Great Chicago Business reported this morning that Mayor Lightfoot wants to renegotiate the casino bill to get more money for the city and to lower the overall tax rate on the city casino, which would mean less money for the state, which would mean less money for the capital bill. Do you have any reaction?
Well, one of the things that we added into the gaming bill was to allow a study to be done by the city of Chicago, okayed by the gaming board, and that study hasn't even taken place. So I think the mayor, in all due respect, is a little ahead of herself. Let's see what the report comes back in. Let's see how it comes back. It may say this is a great investment, you're going to make a lot of money. It may say something else. We don't know, but we authorized to allow her to have this study. So I would wait until that comes back before we react on anything.
The way we set the tax structure with a third, and a third, the way we set the tax structure, a third, and a third, it's even across the board. So, and with that study that was put in, that was at the request of the city to make sure that it, when that comes back, that should be telling what if it's going to make it or not.
Okay. And Governor, my follow-up, the story also included some proposals from the mayor's office to tax retirement income over $100,000, produce $1 billion so that they could use it for the Chicago pension funds, and maybe taking some extra money from your fair tax if it passes. Do you have any reaction to that?
Well, as you know, I oppose retirement tax, and I have all along. I do not think, I also heard that there was a discussion about the state taking on liabilities. I want to make sure that we are improving our credit worthiness and our credit rating with the credit rating agencies, and so we've got to be very careful about anything that we do in that regard, and so I would say that's challenging. And I'm in favor of standing up for our cities and counties across the state. Chicago is one of those cities, an important one, but we'll have to have conversations to see what it is that we can do to help. I'm confident that we can help overcome the challenges cities across the state are experiencing. This isn't just a Chicago-only challenge. We have pension challenges. Talk to the folks from Rockford about pension issues in their police and fire pensions, for example. So we've got to help address folks all across the state. City of Chicago is an important one, and I look forward to speaking with the mayor about that.
Did she speak to you or any of her staff speak to you about
I have not heard it directly from her, but I will say that we've had lots of conversation. She was here in Springfield, as you know. I've been to events with her and had conversations. But I look forward to working with the mayor of the city of Chicago. Let's recognize Chicago is an economic engine for the state. It's very important for us to make sure that Chicago continues to be successful. And so we'll be trying to work through the challenges that Chicago is experiencing, just like we'll work through the challenges that Rockford, that Carbondale, that Quincy, and other cities are having.
Governor, confident to say that the retirement tax idea is dead on arrival?
Yeah, I'm not in favor of retirement tax.
Governor, you talked about the savings for people in home repairs and whatnot. It's no secret there's a lot of families that can't even afford to fix a flat tire.
That's right.
So what suggestions that you have for them that are going to be hit by this? What should they cut from their budgets to make up for the increase in the gas taxes?
Well, remember, people are often going through the challenges of depreciation and the issues that they go through with their cars and not getting them fixed, and just patching things is really how many people are getting through. But I'll tell you that the benefits so far outweigh what people are putting in to make this investment. Remember, jobs are getting created, people are getting mass transit so they can get to their jobs faster, productivity is improving. It really does benefit people across the state. And as you know, I'm trying to make it fairer for working families by changing the income tax system. That will have a positive impact, I think, on people all across Illinois. I want to make sure, there was a gentleman back here, a teacher, who was asking about whether we're investing in schools, right?
Teacher from a small town where we're kind of
Yes, sir.
clinging to our taxes to stay alive.
Yeah.
How is this gaming funding, maybe this recreational marijuana, how is this going to help us in the small communities, but maybe teachers nationwide, or I'm sorry, statewide?
Uh-huh.
Being a little bit too big there, right?
So to be clear, I'm not sure I would use each one of those as examples, but we're making significant investments in education. But Senator Manar led the effort to raise the minimum wage for teachers, for example, which I very much favor. Yeah, and thank you. And we're making included more than almost $500 million of improved funding for education in the state from the state. And that's including the $350 million for the evidence-based funding model, $25 million additional dollars that I wanted to put into the evidence-based funding model, and then additional dollars that come in other ways to education. And then within the capital bill, there are dollars that will come. We're going to be looking at the school construction formula for the state to make sure the crumbling high schools and middle schools and grammar schools all across the state deserve funds, and we're going to be looking at that as well.
We're painting the hallways, during the summertime, trying to help out, within our own community. And we are kind of hoping, we see some of those residual dollars back into education, so especially for our youth and inner cities. We're going to hope we see that from gaming, from the recreational marijuana, where that's been happening in some of the states with legal recreational marijuana.
Some of it comes from about 45% of the dollars that come from recreational marijuana are going into paying our bills and going into the general revenue fund. So those are very positive for exactly what you're describing. Some of the dollars that are coming from gaming are going into building schools, including early childhood centers and so on. But I'd like to bring you with me everywhere I go, because I think it's very important for us to make investments in education. There you go. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor.
Thanks, everybody.
.com/Illinois Channel TV. And after you watch, tell us what you think. We appreciate it. Thanks for watching.